My name is Margaret. I'm 69 years old. I live alone in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've lived my entire life with dignity, even in the moments when loneliness was my only company. But tell me something. What would you do if your only child bought a house with your money and decided to put your mother-in-law to live in it, leaving you out? It's strange, isn't it? We create. Take care. Give everything we have, and when it's finally time to get some rest, the stab comes. Perhaps you are here trying to understand how a mother gets to the point of cutting her own child out of life. Or maybe you've experienced something similar and just want to know how this story ends. What I can promise you is this. By the end of this video, I'll top down. You will understand what happens when a good but forgotten woman decides to wake up. No. Because that afternoon, when I heard what he said through the half-open door, it was as if something inside me had died. But what was born after? No one expected it. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know something. I was never one to fight, nor to raise my voice. I always preferred to swallow hard and move on. But that day, when I heard with my own ears that the house I helped buy would have no place for me, something in me has changed. I picked up the phone, dialed the number, and put it on speakerphone. My son turned white, frozen. He didn't know I knew. I didn't imagine that I would hear everything, and much less what I would do next. What I would do next. If you've ever felt left out, if you've ever loved someone too much who only came to you when they needed you, then you'll understand every word I'm about to say. And if this story touches you in any way, if you feel that it looks like yours, I ask you, from the bottom of my mother's heart, leave your like, subscribe to the channel. I need to give a word on the Comment me too, if this pain has already visited you, because telling this story is not easy. But I know there are a lot of women there, on the other side, who will understand. And today, alone, we will no longer suffer in silence. It was hot that day in Charlotte, one of those sultry days when the air seems to weigh on your shoulders. I was sitting at the kitchen table, peeling potatoes to make a stew, when I heard the doorbell ring. It was my son, Jamal, in Kotaban. Just by his face, I already knew that something was coming. He came in with that way of his, the same as when he was a boy and wanted something. Lowered eyes, an embarrassed smile. How did you bound? When did it sound? And a sweeter than usual high. Mom. I sat facing him. I asked if everything was okay. He took a deep breath, took my hand between his and said, Okay, well, it's so deal these are what do. Mom, I found a house. No, the perfect home. Near. It's in Huntersville. It has 3 bedrooms, a huge backyard for the kids, and Kesha was delighted. We found ourselves living there. But I have a problem. At that moment, I already knew where the conversation was going. I just didn't know the size of the order. Jamal said he needed $20. Zero. It's just for the down payment. Oh, Mom, Mom. Then we make do with the rest. I'll pay you in 2 years. Promise. And of course, you will always have your space with us. The house will be yours, too. There will always be a room waiting for you. My eyes watered. Lee, not for the 20,000, but for the idea of, finally, being part of it. That it is not only the grandmother who visits, to have a room of my own, Wilhelm, where I could hear the laughter of my grandchildren running down the hallway. Of, maybe, who knows, wake up with the smell of coffee that wasn't mine. I was reluctant, not because I didn't want to help, but because it was all I had. Nedsenabam. Those 20 were saved over decades. There were nights of lunch taken to work. There were years of buying shoes on sale, wearing the same winter coat for 5 winters in a row. Well, but I looked into my son's eyes, and I said yes. The next day, wow, I went to the bank. I took the money out of my savings account and handed him a check. Jamal hugged me so tight, I almost couldn't breathe. Thank you, Mom. You will love your little room. It will have a view of the garden. Kesha has even thought of a light blue curtain that suits you. I wrote all of this down in my journal that night. I wrote every word. Today my son chose me. Today I felt part of it. I closed the notebook carefully and went to sleep with a light heart, as I had not felt for a long time. But it's funny how we listen to what we want, isn't it? And how love sometimes makes us deaf to small signs. Jamal talked a lot that day, but now, and I still got by. It out in Haxor Cedar. Remembering well, he talked more about Kesha than about me. He talked about his mother-in-law, who would come from Miami, how good the house was for the children, how he wanted a peaceful future for the family, and I stuck to just one phrase. You will always have your space with us. No, it's sad to think that sometimes we accept crumbs thinking it's love. If you've ever felt that too, he comments below with a "I've lived that." Sometimes we need to see our pain written to understand that it is real. The following week, they came back to my house with the paperwork. Jamal asked me to sign a document to transfer the amount. He said it was for the bank. Formal thing. Just to prove that the money was a gift and not a loan. At the time, Elise, that sounded strange to me. But I trusted it. I always trusted. Signed, no. The following week, the purchase papers arrived. Jamal called beamingly, "Mom, we did it. The house is ours." He used our, and I knew she would found hasting still. Silly, unknown. Believed it. But what I didn't know is that, in the hearts of some, our is only worth as long as the money is useful. And that's when everything started to change. Have you ever noticed how the silence of those we love can hurt more than any harsh words? Well, it was this silence that came later, that emptiness of being left out of conversations. That later will show you the house that never turned come with us now. But there was a day when I heard, inadvertently, um, and what I heard there, in that call, leaking through the hallway door, was what made me realize the house had been bought with my money, but my place in it never existed. Do you want to know what I heard? What my own son said about me? No. When did you think I wasn't listening? So wait for the next part, because after that, I was never the same woman again. The following weeks passed quickly. Jamal was always excited, telling him about the news of the house. Mom, the garden is beautiful. You need to see it. They planted a cherry tree in front. That will look wonderful in the spring. I smiled and listened, imagining the tree blooming through the window of the room he said would be mine. Kesha also came, sometimes to drop the children off with me, always in a hurry, but polite. One Saturday she came into the kitchen and said, Margaret, we have chosen the wallpaper for Miss Cynthia's room. It will be lavender. I'm so don't touch yours. Just the way she likes it. You'll get the best view of the house. She spoke with such certainty, so naturally, that I didn't know what to answer. I swallowed. I expected some comment about my room, but it didn't come. I stood there, stirring the coffee on the stove, trying to believe that it wasn't what it seemed. Perhaps it was temporary. No. Maybe the mother-in-law would just stay a few days and then return to Miami. I repeated this to myself several times that day. I repeated it in silence, at the table, in the shower, now, before going to sleep. I repeated it until it seemed true, but deep down, there was a growing discomfort. The Sunday, Jamal took me the extra keys to the house. He said I was supposed to keep it safe in case they lost the copies. I thanked him, but I realized that he didn't say a word about my move, my room, my presence. He only talked about the children, Kesha, the backyard, then the barbecue. One day, he simmered, "Okay, I shall come. I'm Senator at stay." While washing the dishes, I heard Kesha speaking on speakerphone with a friend. Senator, I can't wait for my mom to arrive. We will prepare everything for her. Poor thing. She was trapped in that apartment in Miami for years. Now she will have peace. I stood with the sponge in my hand, the soap running down my arm. Peace, she said. And me? What did I mean there? I started to notice small details. The house purchases always came with something Cynthia liked. The plans for her room were already being executed. Even the neighbor's dog would be taken into account in the choice of fence. But no one talked about me. Not a word. Not a blue curtain. Not an extra bed. Not a comment on my move. And every time I tried to bring it up, Jamal would change the conversation. He said that it was too much stress, that everything would be solved later. Now, and I kept quiet, because those who love prefer to believe than to confront. Those who love are afraid of discovering that they have been left behind. So I pretended I didn't understand. I continued to help, cook, smiling when they showed me photos of the renovation. Until I, one day, on my town, I wanna stay. I want to tell. I saw a box on the table in my living room. It was from the mail. I opened slowly. Inside, now, on the table, a gift, a purple blanket, and a note. To Miss Cynthia, eyes with affection, moan down. Welcome to your new home. The sender's name was Kesha. Why not forget our cacao, your corn. The address was the same as the new house. My address, too, or at least what I thought it would be. At that moment, I knew, soon, even without saying anything. They had decided everything, and I, what I did come, well, on the car. I was not part of any plan, but the worst was yet to come, because what I heard that night, behind the half-open door, it was what tore the ground off my feet. And when I told myself that I could still forgive, came the phrase that I will never forget. Do you want to know what he said? So get ready. On Sue, when Sarah cut, the next part is going to hurt. It was night. I had just finished putting away the dishes and was closing the curtains in the living room when I heard Jamal's voice coming from the hallway. He was on the phone, pacing back and forth, as he always did when talking to Kesha. The door to my room was ajar, and so was the living room. And by chance, or perhaps by fate, I heard every word. It was not my intention. I am not one of those to listen behind the door. But at that moment, something made me stop. The tone of the conversation, the way he spoke, something alerted me. First, na. I heard laughter, those light laughs that we let out when we are excited. Then this Kesha noise, loud and lively on speakerphone. Finally, Jamal, this now the house will be a home. Now, Mom will love the room overlooking the garden. You'll have the peace you've always dreamed of. My heart tightened. Garden? Peace? Room? For a second, I thought they were talking about me. But then came my son's response. Yes, love, Miss Cynthia will feel right at home. Everything just the way she wanted. That front room is perfect for her. Morning sun, beautiful view, quiet, it will be hers. I stood still. Miss Cynthia, one, Kesha's mother, my son's mother-in-law, the woman I barely know, the woman who, until a few months ago, lived in another state and who never raised her hand to raise Jamal. This woman would have the room I was promised, the room with the garden view, the same garden that I imagined seeing in the morning while drinking my coffee. And then, the sentence that cut deeper than any knife. Kesha asked, "What about your mom?" Jamal, have you told her? His silence lasted about 3 seconds, but it hurt like hours. Not yet, he replied. I think it's better to wait for the change. You know my mother. She is sensitive. She clings to ideas, but she's fine in her apartment. It has everything there. And You know how it is. Always find something to complain about. It was like being slapped, a slap coming from the mouth of those you created. Fedunal. Let's idiot on the set town. Protected. One child. Do you always find something to complain about? Soon me, who spent my life keeping quiet about what I felt so as not to bother anyone, that I sold my wedding ring when he needed money in college, that I stayed up all night taking care of her grandchildren because Kesha said she was too exhausted. I, who never asked for anything but respect, I took a deep breath, leaned against the wall of the hallway. My legs trembled. My chest burned, but I didn't cry. Not there. I waited for him to hang up. I waited for him to leave the room. I waited for him to enter the room. I went back to the kitchen as if nothing had happened. I sat at the table. I took the electricity bill and stood there, pretending to read. When he passed me, when I went up the city stone, he smiled. Dear, he said, there no time, much to go on, way. I said, good evening, Mom. No. And I answered, quietly, wow. But I answered, no. He gave me a kiss on the forehead, as he did when he was a boy. And that kiss, which one day melted me. Wow. Now it has frozen me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay staring at the ceiling, trying to understand when he stopped seeing me as part of the family. Was it when I retired? When did I start repeating the same stories? When did I stop being useful to them? Was I too naive to believe that a mother's love was enough to guarantee a place in the hearts of her children? I remembered the phrase I wrote in my diary on the day I signed the check. Today my son chose me. What an irony. He chose me. Yes, to pay the bill on down. And now I had to choose what to do with all that. Because when silence becomes an answer, it's time to make noise with attitudes. And it was in that early morning, sitting on the edge of the bed, that I decided if they thought I was no longer needed, so it was time to show who I really was. But first, I needed to remember everything I had already given, everything that had come out of my hands without ever having returned. Want to know what I found out when I did this math? So wait. Because what came after was the beginning of my freedom. The next morning, I made the coffee the same way I always did. Coffee passed through a cloth strainer, just the way Jamal likes it. There was cornbread, butter, and that thick silence that only those who were betrayed in silence know how to recognize. He came out of the room smiling. And Winston here wet, adjusting the collar of his shirt, and said, wow, good morning, Mom. I smiled back. Good morning, son. He sat at the table as if nothing had happened, as if the night before he hadn't decided, behind my back, that my seat no longer existed. She talked about work, about her grandchildren, said that Kesha was looking forward to the change. There are only 2 weeks left. Mom, after that, new life, new life. And I, where did you enter this life? I sat facing him, listening calmly. Oh, I'll get that shout, Rudyard Parker said, my eyes staring at the face I've known since it came out of me. But something had changed. It was as if I was looking at a stranger. The hands were the same, the gestures too, but the heart, ah, his heart no longer beat for me as it used to. As he spoke, no, as he spoke, I remembered when he was 7, he had a high fever one night, and I stood by his bed with a basin of cold water, wetting his forehead with cloth. I stayed up until the sun came up. And now, years later, Makando no Keko, want you sound. Hux. He talked about the future without even including me. When he finished his coffee and left for work, I sat there, the glass still warm in his hands, but the soul cold. I went to my room, opened the desk drawer, and took my diary. I went through the pages until I found the note for that day. When I handed over the check for the $20,000, I read the words as if they were from another woman. Today my son chose me. I closed the diary slowly. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. For the first time, a question came to me with force. What if I had said no? What if, on that day, I had saved the money? What if I had thought more of myself than of them? What if, instead of giving away my future, I had protected him? The truth is that we get used to giving ourselves so much. They who forgets what it is like to choose oneself. I was a mother. I did a world yard. I was a mother. I was a nurse. I was a maid. I was a nanny. I was a counselor. And now, hey, I was what? A name on a bank account? A forgotten face in a corner armchair? I got up, went to the mirror in the hallway, and looked at myself. His face marked by the years, by the silences swallowed, by the sleepless nights. I didn't cry. Not at that moment. I only stared at the woman I had become. A woman who always said yes. But now I was starting to think differently. And look, now, since you've come this far, listening to my outburst, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. I'm here, opening my heart, telling my story with all the wounds exposed. And if you're there feeling along with me, it strengthens me, because there's still a lot in store for me to tell you. That same day, I decided that I was going to stop talking and start observing. Whatever Jamal said, I would listen. But now, with other ears, no longer as a mother, but as a woman. And whatever he asked for, I was no longer going to answer at the time. I would think I was going to weigh in and be serum or the above all, I would remember with Silva would remember. Because the memory of a betrayed mother is like glass. It can seem fragile. But when it shatters, it cuts deep. What I decided to do after that coffee was simple. I was going to write it down. Everything. Every penny. Every favor. Every promise. And that's when I started to list everything I had already given him. Can you imagine the amount that appeared when I finished this account? So get ready. Wow. Because in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly how much it cost to be forgotten. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. It was still dark outside, but I was already up, like in the old days when I had to leave early for work and get coffee ready before Jamal woke up for school. But now, the reason was different. I wasn't going to work for anyone. It was time to work for myself, for the first time in many years. I went to the kitchen, put the water on the fire and prepared my strong coffee, the way only I know how to do it. I sat at the table with my old notebook, the one with a shabby leather cover that I have carried since I retired. I opened to the first blank sheet of paper and wrote everything I gave to my son. And I started to remember. First, the $20,000 he asked me for the entrance to the house. But before that, there was much more. 2 years ago, it took $2,000 for him to change his car. The old one kept breaking, and he said he needed a safer one for the children. He never showed me the new car. I just said, "Thank you, Mom," and disappeared. I've said what now? Then he had the $800 to fix the transmission of the same car. Well, months later, on you. He showed up at my door with the receipt in his hand. Saying he had no way out. Further back, I remembered the 10,000 who came out of my savings to pay the children's school fees. Kesha called me, crying, saying that they were going to lose their place if they didn't solve it by Monday. I went to the bank on Friday. 300 here, 500 there, 700 for a new trousseau when Kesha got pregnant with the girl. We're tight? No. Mom, just until the new job is established. There was also the 1,500 of her dental surgery. It wasn't an emergency. It was aesthetic. But I gave it anyway. Her self-esteem is shaken. Jamal told me 3,000 to cover a blown-out card. It was an emergency. Mom, we don't usually spend like that. 500 for DeAndre's birthday, which they wanted to do at the zoo. We can never do anything nice. Mom, only this once. Birthdays, Christmas, clothes for the grandchildren. Oh, toys, extra food. All in all, line by line. Nice. Later near to Bukasha nice to bow. Name my name. Let's see card. When I got to the end of the account, I wrote the total amount in large print. $48. $48,300. I stared at that number as if it were a stranger. It was the price of my goodwill. The size of the hole they opened inside me with a hasty thank you and no return. I gave more than I could, more than it should. I gave it because I thought that was what mothers did. And maybe it is. But the problem is, when we give so much, who no longer knows where love ends and abuse begins. And while I was writing that list, the memories came like a flood. Jamal Small, waiting for me at the end of the school hallway, with his backpack bigger than him on his back. Jamal, as a teenager, slamming the bedroom door. When I see yourself, I found saying that I didn't understand anything about his life. Jamal, adult, married, oh, calling me only when he needed something. And I, always ready, now, always saying, of course, my son, my son. The mother finds a way, but now, no, so times are calm. Now, I have begun to understand. Oh, the way he got used to having me there, as if I were an extension of the bank account. Oh, it wasn't out of malice, but it was self-indulgence. And self-indulgence sometimes is crueler than evil. I closed the notebook calmly. I got up, went to the window, and saw the day starting to lighten. The trees swayed slowly, as if the wind was whispering, "The time has come." Me, so it about. Yes, it did, because after that list, after seeing in black and white everything I delivered, I knew I couldn't stay the same anymore. The only question that remained now was what to do with this truth. And look, Noah, you won't believe what happened when he called me again. Do you want to know what he asked for? So prepare your heart, because the next part hurts. It hurts because it shows that, even after everything, he still thought he could ask for more. The phone rang early in the morning, and I already knew it was him. Jamal's name appeared on the screen, and for a moment I thought about not answering. But the mother's instinct still spoke louder, even wounded, even tired. I took a deep breath and said hello. His voice came sweet, hurried. How und sehr kaufmann. As always when he wanted to ask me for something. Hi, Mom. Okay. Are you busy? I said, no, that I was having coffee. He hesitated for a while and began. So, Mom, we are in the last preparations for the move. You know, a lot of rushing, but some extra expenses appeared. Silly stuff, nothing much. $3,000 to settle with the drivers, painting, and some furniture that we need to buy. I was silent for a moment. 3,000 for someone who had just spent 20,000. It seemed like a small number, but inside me, until it was huge. $3,000. I repeated slowly, yes, Mom, just to finish it all. I promise it's the last time. And then, when everything is ready, we want you to come and see the house. It will be beautiful. I leaned against the table, looking at the half-finished cup of coffee. Jamal, Lee, when can I see the house? I asked. On the other end of the line, a silence of those who speak more than any words. Mom, the house is still a bit messy. There's ink. There's a box. It's not a good time to visit. And when will I move in with you? I added, no, that will be sweeter about the captor. Without hesitation. The response took time. I could hear his breathing, the discomfort. So, come, Mom, about it? Kesha and I talked, and we think it might be better for you to stay in your apartment for now. You know how it is. until we adapt. The children become more comfortable. Kesha is also stressed about her new job. I think it's better this way. He spoke as if explaining any detail. But for me, that was a sentence. For now, Heidau, Adjunans, Aforsi high. 2 short words, but too heavy. I held the phone tight and just said, I get it. He tried to relieve it, laughed embarrassedly, said it was only for a few months, and then we would see. And I, with the calm voice that I learned to use so as not to break inside, replied, That's right, son. I'll think about the 3,000. Think, he repeated. I'll, as if he didn't understand the word. Yes, think. I need to see my accounts. He laughed, but the laughter came dully. Oh, nice. Mom, you don't have to think. It's just a little more help. You always help. We count on that. This time, I need to think, I repeated. Well, I'm calm. He kept quiet, and for the first time in many years, calm. I hung up before it. I stood there, with the phone still in my hand, feeling the blood pulsing slowly. It was as if, suddenly, all the pieces of my life were falling into place, and the final design was very different from what I imagined. They never wanted me to go there. I was not part of the house, nor of the plans, nor of the family future. It was only good for what they called a dream, and I was the price they were willing to pay. I went to the window. Outside, the sky was cloudy, the trees swayed, and a cold wind came through the crack. I felt a strange peace, a new serenity, as if I had finally woken up from a very long sleep. You know, there's a moment in life when we realize that we don't have to beg to fit anywhere anymore. And when that penny drops, everything changes. I went back to the table. Looked at the phone, and for the first time, I didn't wait for it to ring again. No. During the day, he sent 2 short messages. One night bomb. Mom, did you think about the money? We need to close tomorrow morning. I didn't answer. Night. In the evening, another one came. Is everything okay with you? Were you hurt? No. I wasn't hurt. I was awake. That night, I didn't cry. I did something different. I opened the notebook where I wrote down everything I have ever given him. And next to the last number, 48, 300, I wrote one more line. 3,000, not granted. I closed the notebook, put it in the drawer, and lay down. I felt my body light, as if I had given back to myself a piece of life that I no longer remembered I had. But I knew he wasn't going to stop there, that the next phone call would come, and that, this time, me, it would be different, because when a mother is silent, the child learns to listen. And what was I going to say to him in the next phone call? It would change everything. That morning, Yes, I didn't clean the house. I didn't mop it. I didn't make coffee. I didn't organize the pillows, as I always did. I sat in the armchair in the living room with the notebook on my lap and stayed there, looking out the window as if waiting for time to pass slowly. My phone vibrated on the table. Wow, non-stop. It was him. Jamal. 2, 3, 4 calls. Messages, one after the other. Nestor, one after the other. Mom, I'm trying to talk to you. We need to solve this. Answer me. I did not demand. Please. But I didn't answer. For the first time in my life, I let the phone ring until it stopped. And then, I let it play again. I got up calmly, grabbed my bag, and went to the bank. I walked slowly down the sidewalk, feeling the wind on my face as if I was breathing for the first time in months. I went in, waited to be called. Me, Kion assist. And when I arrived at the counter, Neo, come. I looked into the girl's eyes and said, I want to cancel the additional card linked to my account. She confirmed the data. My Sam asked if that was the case. Yes, it is. My daughter. And I also want to remove a name from my joint account. The girl hesitated. Is it your son? Ma'am? I smiled. Menton. I smiled, sadly and firmly at the same time. Yes, but today he became something else. After that, I did what? I asked to be referred to the legal sector. I sat in the room with the consultant, signed the papers, and asked, what if I want to change my will? Is it possible? He said yes, that it was simple. That it was enough to make an appointment with a lawyer. No. I said I wanted to schedule it later that week. I left the bench lighter than I entered. The sun was warmer, but inside me it was very cold, a cold that warns that the fever has passed. I returned home, and when I entered, I heard the phone ringing again. Jamal. I took a deep breath. I looked at the screen. I didn't answer. Wow. And on that day, I didn't answer any of the calls. Neither in that one, nor in the next. That's when the long messages came. First, he insisted on money. Then she started asking if I was sick, if I was upset, if anyone had told me something. And then came the excuses. I'm sorry, I didn't explain it better. And I'm sorry I hurt you. Nane's Tantian. Kesha is going through a difficult time, too. But none of those words spoke of me. None said, you are important. They all revolved around his concern. Money, the impact, the lack I would make in their project. And that's when I realized something. Absence also speaks. When we disappear, the other begins to see where the emptiness is. I sat on the couch, looked at the portrait I have of Jamal with the children, and I missed it. Me. I don't miss the man who called me asking for help, but of the boy who clung to my skirt when he was afraid. I miss when he looked at me with that silent respect, that love that didn't need to be said. But today, Mom, today I am no longer that woman. Today I am someone who has finally understood my own value. And look, if you've ever felt like you gave everything to someone who only knew how to take it out, comment here with a "I know how it is." Sometimes, seeing that there are more people going through this already helps us feel less alone. On the third night, he appeared at the door. He knocked, called, pulled, insisted. I too had pain, but I didn't open it. You. I sat in the dark of the room, now, listening to the footsteps outside. With you, the sound of the doorknob being tested, and then silence. I knew that a new time was born there. And you want to know what he did after he realized that I wasn't going to open the door like I used to? Just wait until you see what he tried to do with the house. Because that's when I understood that the name in the scripture said more than he remembered. On that Wednesday afternoon, my cell phone beeped 3 times in less than 5 minutes. The first notification was a voicemail from DeAndre, my eldest grandson. Lidshabio. Grandma, Nussie, Daddy is nervous. He said that you are not answering. We're going to move this week. You're going to come see my new room, right? His voice was light, unaware of the pain he cut inside. I pressed the phone to my chest and closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. No. The second warning was a message from Kesha. Short, direct, as she has always been with me. Margaret, Jamal is very stressed. I know you're upset, but that doesn't help. The changes this week. If it's because of the house, well, then, well, solve it. But help me with the 3,000 first. I read that message as if reading a sentence. If it's because of the house, they really thought it was because of the house, as if it were a dispute for space, a tantrum, any nuisance. It didn't cross the mind of any of them that maybe, just maybe, or because of what that house represented. Exclusion, no, ingratitude, erasura, injibakan, nantimobakso. The third message was from him. Mom, I'm sorry if I said something wrong. We love you, but we need to close the change. That's all there is to it now. Then we talk calmly. Please help me. Please help me. That phrase, said so many times over the years, now rang hollow. Bend, wail, siab, like a key used in doors that no longer open. I sat on the edge of the bed, notebook on my lap. No phones and view such tactiles. Cell phone by my side. What idiots. My hands trembled slowly. My stage out. Outbacard. Until knocked out. My heart felt like a dull drum, playing alone in the chest. And there, I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in a long time. I cried for everything I swallowed. I cried for the words I didn't say, for the love I gave, for the lack of care with which I was treated. I cried because I realized that I spent my whole life trying to be a mother who doesn't bother, who doesn't demand, Who only gives? No. And in the end, I became invisible even to those I loved the most. The pain wasn't because of the $3,000. The pain was to finally understand that that son I raised with so much love, with so much dedication, he learned to ask, but he did not learn to love. He knew how to count on my money, but he didn't know how to count on me. And there, in that silence of my own, I decided that would be my last cry. Not because the pain would pass, but because now she was going to transform. It was going to become a decision. It was going to become a movement. It would become justice. I dried my face, closed the notebook firmly, and put the messages away without responding. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. And for the first time in years, I recognized myself. The woman in front of her was not weak. I was tired. But I was waking up, and the house they thought was theirs alone. They forgot a detail. They forgot a name. Do you want to know what name was written on the deed of that house? So wait, Mama, because when Jamal found out, it was too late. That morning, I opened my wardrobe and chose an outfit that I hadn't worn in a while. A navy blue outfit, discreet and well ironed, which she used to wear when she was going to solve important things. I put on light lipstick, combed my hair carefully, and sprayed the perfume that was only for special occasions. Today, it would be one of them. I looked at myself in the mirror at the entrance and saw myself as I hadn't seen it in a long time. Upright, centered, now, with a fire inside that wasn't anger. We thought it did today. It was clarity. I took the bag, my notebook, and the envelope with the receipts of everything I've already given. And I went. The receptionist at the law firm was young, friendly. Oh, he offered me water, tea. I accepted water. I waited a short time, and soon the doctor called me. How? Dr. Hyndman. Linda Thomas. Gray hair. Wow, the huge sign. When not an architect tried for. Firm smile. How? He greeted me with respect, not in a hurry, nor with that look of someone who thinks that old women talk too much. Sat, and for the first time, I told my whole story, without diminishing myself. I talked about the house check, loans, of favors, of silences. I said of the room overlooking the garden that would never be mine. She listened to me without interrupting, just taking notes, sometimes shaking her head with suppressed indignation. In the end, I took a deep breath and said, I don't want revenge, Doctor. I want justice. I want my name respected. And if it's not for love, let it be for right. She closed her pen, folded her hands on the table. And said, you're right. And it has documents. Let's get started. Well, we talk about wills, deeds, quotas, assets. I found out that the house, registered only in Jamal's name, had been paid for with an amount transferred from my account. That this gave me the right to appeal. I discovered that I could leave a New Testament stating exactly what I wanted, and more, that I could protect my name, my money, and the little that was still mine definitively. I left there with light steps, not out of anger, but out of relief, because now everything I had delivered, he was going to be remembered, oh, not with charges, but with structure, not with shouts, but with papers. And at that moment, I understood. Being good is not being silly. Being a mother is not being stupid. And donating is not canceling yourself. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I just needed to remember who I was before I was forgotten. If this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, will it help me to carry it forward? Like and subscribe here to the channel. Oh, it makes more difference than you think. There are many women who still think they can't change. But it can. Yes, I'm here, proving it now. On the way out of the office, the sun was shining, and I sat for a few minutes on the bench in the front square. I felt the wind on my face and thought, now it begins. But to begin with, I own Norntafel. I still needed one last conversation with Jamal, but I didn't go to him. This time, he would come to me. Do you want to know what I did to force this meeting? Oh, you won't believe it, but it worked. And how? I spent the next week in silence, but not still. Each morning, I opened my briefcase, sorted out receipts, and organized everything more carefully than I had ever organized anything in my life. The copies of the bank statements, the receipts of the deposits, the messages exchanged with Jamal over the years. Every detail that I had previously ignored for love was now an important piece of my puzzle of justice. I returned to Dr. Linda's office with everything in hand. She received me with the same respect as the first time, and when she saw what I had gathered, she said only, "Nine well, and child, my dear, you have done more than many people can." Right there, we formalized the withdrawal of Jamal as my universal heir. The old will was torn up, and the IT cell, and a new one was written before me. In this New Testament, I have included donations to 3 institutions here in North Carolina that support elderly women who live alone or who have been abandoned by their families. Yes, I could have left everything to the grandchildren, but I felt that, at that moment, I needed to look after myself, and for so many others like me, who gave their all, and ended up forgotten in the end. I also opened a new bank account, only in my name, with exclusive access, and in another bank. I redirected everything. Retirement, negocio, savings, investments, not out of revenge, but for protection. It was like picking back the pieces of me that had been scattered in the hands of others, and it was there that I realized, when we stop waiting for reparation to come from others, healing begins within us, with every document signed, every decision made. I felt like I was coming back to myself, not like Jamal's mother, Not like the grandma in the old house, but like Margaret. I started researching activities here in Charlotte. Women's groups, community fairs, reading projects. I found a cultural center for ladies my age. I scheduled my first visit. I want to engage, listen to other stories, tell mine. Anerboye, son. No shame, no guilt, because now I understand. Being a mother was part of my story, but that's not all I am. And you know the most curious? The more I stood up in silence, the more his messages multiplied. Ice, we need to talk. What's going on? Mom, why are you doing this? But I didn't answer. No, because I knew he wasn't ready to listen to it yet. But time is a master. Me. And when he saw what was about to happen to the house, then, yes, he ran. Wah. Do you want to know what he did when he found out that I still had something that he thought was only his? Well, then, prepares the heart, because it was the first time he cried. But it wasn't for me. It was out of fear. I was going through one of the old folders in the bedroom closet, separating the papers that I still wanted to take to the lawyer to review, when I found a thick envelope, the kind that we keep with everything inside because we are too lazy to organize. Inside, there were transfer receipts, old statements, even some credit card papers that I didn't even remember anymore. I opened them one by one, rereading dates, values, my notes, and there, in that mountain of forgotten papers, I discovered the part of the story that I had not yet seen in its entirety. A deposit slip of $5,000 straight from my account to the account of a certain Cynthia M. Harris. I looked twice. Cynthia, meow. Miss Cynthia, meow. Zeros. Kesha's mother, meow. The one who was going to live in the room overlooking the garden. In the corner of the paper, handwritten by myself, was the justification. Nay, I'm told I took size. Medical emergency. Jamal asked for it. And that hurt me more than his silence, because it wasn't just for me. He took my money and gave it to another woman. A woman who didn't even look at my face. I kept digging. Another paper. A transfer to a business account in the name of K and Co. Events, LLC. I connected the dots. Kesha's Events Company. The same one who, according to her, Khan, needed strength to start over. $6,000. Justified as renovation of the children's room? Wow. Further down, I found an exchange of printed messages. Yes, I printed everything at that time. Mom, Kesha is going to set up a small business. It needs a push. It will be good for the stability of the family. And I, as always, replied, if it's to help you, I'll find a way. I dropped the papers on the bed and sat there, staring into the void. No, a weight in the stomach, a desire to go back in time. Not to change everything, but to say to myself, one night come, wake up. He used my love as a smokescreen. He told me that it was for the children, for the house, for school, for the car, but it was always for them. I was a financier of a project where there was no room for me. And the worst part was not that he gave the money. It was to have been deceived with smiles, with fake hugs, with empty promises. Mr. Empty promises? It's just that there are pains that we don't feel at the time. Only when he understands, and understand, it hurts more than living. Sometimes a simple memory, such as an old note or a forgotten receipt, has the power to reopen wounds that we swore had already healed. Have you ever felt that? If any memory marked you like this too, write here in the comments. Tell me. Sometimes venting helps, and there is always someone who recognizes themselves. I took the envelope, organized the papers back, and put everything in the folder marked with a new label. Proofs. Now I knew that money was never for me. It was always for convenience. They didn't just want my help. They wanted me to be absent as long as the money kept coming. And when I realized this, a calm took over me. Because now, the illusion was over for good. But there was still one thing missing. The deed to the house. No, Janet, and when I got my hands on her, it was there that everything began to change in earnest. Do you want to know what name was there on the paper that they thought was theirs alone? I'll tell you next time, because to this day, no one has forgotten the day I showed it. I dialed his number myself. I didn't send a message. I didn't wait for him to come. Called, and when she answered, wow, her voice came trembling, trying to sound casual. Hi, Mom. I was thinking about you these days. Jamal, I want to have a coffee with you. Today, when on? At 4. At Graham Street's Perkins. He hesitated. No. Today? How? Is everything okay? 4 hours. I'll be there. No. And I hung up. I didn't give room for excuses, nor for justification, because this time I wasn't going to listen. I was going to speak. I went to the office. Took my blue briefcase, the one that now held everything I had built with my hands, and everything that was taken from me with silence. I organized the papers in order. One at your chair, or that. Receipts, statements, none. The new will, the deed to the house, and on top of it all, a sheet printed with a single number, 57. $430. The total, Leon, and figured out penny by penny. I arrived early at the restaurant, sat in front of the door, when old, and so I can't use, ordered just tea. I wanted to be sober, white, at 4 and 7 p. Wow, how, in, and then he entered. No, I came in a hurry, wrinkled shirt, cell phone in hand. Look of someone who still thought there was time to bend me. Mother, he began. Trying to smile. I just pointed to the chair in front of me. Sit down, Mulacho. He sat down, Lewa, and for a few seconds he was silent. He looked around, how, perhaps expecting a scene, a tear, a plea, but it was no longer this woman that he had in front of him. Do you know how much money I've already given you, Jamal? He shook his head. Dismissed. No, not you. Mom, I've never disappeared, but I have always been grateful. I opened the folder, pulled out the sheet with the number, and pushed it to him. 57,000. No, $430. That's it. It's all here. He looked at the papers, then at me. He tried to laugh. No, Bezirin Kaisagashia, Margora Paksa, nervously. Miansi Obawaya Town, Amtel. Mom, are you really telling these things? No. I'm registering, so that it doesn't happen again. I took the will, opened it, showed the lawyer's signature. Ayathakawam. This is the new one. You are no longer an heir. Neither you nor Kesha. And the house. That house you swore would belong to all of us. It was bought with my money. He started talking, but I raised my hand. Don't interrupt me. He swallowed. Noun. Oh. He kept quiet. Malai. I'd pretend he would be to close soon. I've already removed your name from my accounts. I have already stopped the transfers. I've already opened my new life. But, Mom, is this all because of a misunderstanding? It was not a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding of mine. I thought that being a mother was being invisible. It was to donate without asking. It was to keep quiet, to keep the peace. But being a mother? How? Jamal, how? This is Kolnudstok. That's not it. Being a mother is teaching. Young. And you need to learn, even if it's now. At the end, he blushed, lowered his eyes. You won't be in need. Neither do your children. I'm not cruel. That counts. But what is mine? Now it goes to those who respect me, even if it doesn't have my blood. We stood there in silence for a few seconds. He fiddled with the napkin like a scolded boy. But it wasn't regret that I saw. It was fear. And when he looked up, what I saw was despair. Not by me, but for everything he thought was guaranteed. The house, Nanya. I asked that why, the boy. He muttered, no. Oh, yes. The house. I opened the envelope and took out the copy of the deed, pointing with my finger. I showed him the detail he had ignored. The name of the holder of the $20,000 entry, Margaret E. Holmes. Proven. Logged. And I didn't so. You forgot that the entry came out of my account. In my name. I have a legal right to part of the house. He gasped. He tried to say something, but he kept quiet. I'm not going to take your house away. Jamal, I'm not like you. But now you know. None of this is unquestionable. None of this is yours alone. I got up, closed the folder, Now, I'm going to live down. And you're going to have to deal with it. He followed me with his eyes to the door. He said nothing more, but before leaving, I stopped, turned around and asked, "Can you really sleep peacefully in this house, knowing how it was built? Because consciousness, this one, even I can't take it off. And it is she who starts charging now." Want to know how he reacted? You'll see now. Because what he did next, it was low. How? Very low. I left that cafe with my heart pounding. But for the first time, it was not out of fear. It was for firmness. I paid the bill in silence, without looking back. Jamal was still sitting, paralyzed, as if he had been shocked. Unharmed, I was not zero. And maybe I did, not because I lost the money, but because I finally realized that he lost control over me. I returned home, walking slowly, feeling the weight of my decisions, and also the lightness that came along with them. That night, I prepared my chamomile tea, sat in the living room armchair, and took a deep breath. I took my cell phone, opened the contact list. First, the number of Jamal. Block contact. Confirmed. Then, now. Kesha's number. Oh, there you go. Same thing. No messages. No late apologies. No emotional blackmail. They would no longer have easy access to the woman they were used to using. The next day, wow, I wrote a letter. 2 pages. I printed it, signed it, Noam. Why signature? I'd better was put it in a white envelope. In my firm handwriting. 1, 0. I wrote down their address in Huntersville. I didn't use nicknames or beating around the bush. The letter was direct, objective, clean as a freshly seared wound. Mr. Warner, Jamal Holmes, Mrs. Kesha Harris, I inform you that, as of this date, any type of financial aid, loan, deposit, or material favor will be suspended indefinitely. This decision is irrevocable until further evaluation by me. Any communication must be made through legal and formal channels. Best regards, Margaret E. Holmes. I put it in the envelope, sealed it with tape, and personally went to the post office to send it by registered mail. With acknowledgement of receipt, I made a point of keeping the protocol. I also kept a copy of the letter with me. Inside the blue folder, and I was still inside, next to the papers of pain, there was now also a symbol of my freedom. That same day, I deleted the old photos that hurt me, the ones where I smiled next to those who didn't smile back. I kept only the good memories, those that still belonged to me without hurting. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't doubt it. For the first time, I was the owner of my story. And this time, I was no longer going to give space to those who only knew how to drink. I remember looking out the window, watching the sun set behind the rooftops, and feeling a peace that had not visited me in a long time. And There's one thing that no one tells you about silence. It's not empty. It is full of what we finally stop swallowing. Mashes those two. But the story did not stop there, because days later, someone knocked on my door, and what he carried in his hands, it changed everything again. Want to know what it was? So, stay, because now it's time for truth. The doorbell rang on a Tuesday morning. I had already put my coffee to cool on the balcony, and the sun had not even passed the trees in the backyard. I went to the door and hurriedly looked through the peephole. It was the postman. He handed over a thin box and a letter with a stamped envelope. I signed, thanked them, closed the door. When I opened the letter, I recognized it from afar. It was the receipt of the registered letter I sent to Jamal and Kesha. They had received it. They had read it. Now they knew. 2 hours later, the landline rang. He only played in urgent cases, because few still knew the number. I answered, no. And on the other side, a brief silence. Then a boyish voice, low, almost whispering, "Hi, Grandma. Hans, it's Malek, my grandson. How?" His voice caught me off guard. I sat down slowly, holding the earphone. Daddy is kind of sad. Mom, too. They are saying that you are angry. But I didn't quite understand. Are you sick? I swallowed hard. No, my love. Grandma is just taking care of herself now, and sometimes that scares others. He was silent. Oh, wow. Then he asked if he could come visit me on the weekend. I said I could. No, of course I could. I hung up with a lump in my throat. It didn't hurt Jamal. My grandchildren's childhood hurt. In the days that followed, the signs of desperation began to arrive. First, it was a message from Jamal himself in an unknown number. Mom, I made a mistake, but we can talk. Let's work it out. I didn't answer. Then, a call from Kesha. Her voice was different, sweet, affable, even calling me Mother Margaret, something she had never done. She said she was worried about me, that she wanted to know if everything was okay. Heard. I was silent, and I hung up. The next day, an even more unexpected call. Miss Cynthia? The so-called mother-in-law. She began by saying that everything could be resolved calmly, that family's just like that. Sometimes it gets out of place. And, finally, that perhaps it would be a case of rebuilding ties. For the sake of the children. How goes? I listened to every word carefully, like someone who reads a note already knowing the ending, and then turned off. I didn't block anyone. It didn't explode. I didn't scream. Because now, silence was my shield. Oh, they were not sorry. Only sitting down, she always chatted up to her. They were scared. Wow, what's their name? They were scared. Scared because they realized that power has changed hands. And a woman who discovers her own worth, he doesn't go back. They tried everywhere. They signaled guilt, fear, and longing, but none of them mentioned love. None of them said, "Forgive me for making you feel forgotten." It was all about what they lost, never about what they destroyed. And that's when I understood for good. I had done it right. There are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling, we help another heart to breathe. Enjoy this video and subscribe. And let's make this story reach those who need it. Because there are too many women out there who still think that giving of themselves is the only way to be loved. But it is not. Why? Love that charges is not love. I went back to my routine. I started attending meetings at the community center. I learned to work better on the computer. I made new friends. I rediscovered my laughter in other faces. And one of those afternoons, while having coffee with Donna, Eliza, and Nancy, two ladies who also had their stories, I heard my name called at the reception. It was a subpoena. Jamal had started a lawsuit. Want to know why? Because he wanted to prove that the money in the house was a gift. He was going to fight to the end, so as not to lose what he thought was already his. But what he didn't know is that now I was ready to fight. And this time, I wasn't going to miss it. A week after the summons, on a cloudy afternoon, I heard a knock on the door of my apartment. 3 rings, then silence. I got up slowly, without haste, already imagining who it could be. When I opened the door, Nejdot was there. He was, Jamal, with her head down, holding a bouquet of withered flowers that seemed to have braved the wind on the way. And behind him, the 2 little ones, Nathan Subao, Malik and Zoe, with those guilt-free faces, which only children can have. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me as if he was waiting for permission to breathe. I opened the door speechlessly. Wow. They came in. The children hugged me tightly, as if time had not passed. And maybe for them, it really wasn't. I went to the kitchen, prepared tea, put dumplings on the table, like so many other times. Sit. Malik told me that he got a BU in science. Zoe showed me a drawing with my name on it. And I, as always, kept every gesture in my heart. Jamal was silent most of the time. I just watched. When the children went to play in the back room, he straightened up in his chair and took a deep breath. Mom, I came to apologize. I kept stirring the cup. Without interrupting, I made a mistake. I let Kesha take charge of things that were mine. That they were ours. I should have listened to you, to have included you. I got lost. I looked up and looked straight into his. It's not just that you got lost. Jamal, it's just that you erased me from the past. And then I wanted to continue as if nothing had happened. He lowered his head. No, the flowers were still in his hand. Half crumpled. New. I wanted you to see the house, that it would be there, that he saw what we built. With your help. I gave a faint smile, steadfast. No sadness. Jamal, I don't need to see the house, because I've seen everything I needed. It was as if he was slapped invisibly. He stood still. No, the lost look, as if he had finally understood that it was not about the house. It was about what it stood for. The silence lasted a few seconds. Then he nodded. You're right, and I am going to respect that. I got up and went to the bedroom to get the grandchildren's old toys that I had saved. I gave it to them with joy. I hugged them. I asked them to come back whenever they wanted. The house would always be open to them. But for him, the door was now different. And it wasn't made of wood. Style. It was made of it was made of trust. And this one? Jamal, you don't have the key anymore. You know, there are moments in life when we realize that we don't need to scream. We don't need to prove it. It just needs to be whole. And on that day, I was. But what I didn't know, it's just that his reaction hadn't ended there. The following week, what he did, and then it's so tired. It was the last attempt to bring me down. And that's when he discovered, when a woman gets up, there is no lie that can bring her down. Want to know what he did? I'll tell you now. Because this time, the house became a court. I learned from the halls of the community center, where everyone knows someone who knows someone, that Kesha had lost her job. She was fired without explanation, according to her. But those who live by appearance and contempt eventually bump into reality. They said that the company cut people, but I know well that when the root is rotten, the branch falls faster. Miss Cynthia, the mother-in-law, who was going to live in the dream house, packed her bags and returned to Miami. I don't know if it was out of nostalgia, wounded pride, or realizing that the castle built with my sweat was collapsing. I only know that he left. The house, the one I was once promised as a home, has become a burden, an expensive burden. Maintenance, installment, taxes. Jamal started selling what he could. First, it was the living room television. Then, a beautiful sedan, which he was so proud of. I saw the photos of the ad online, because even this reaches me, even without me looking for it. I also heard that he tried to get a loan from the bank. Denied. No. Their credit score was no longer the same. The expenses, the cards in Kesha's name, wild. Everything accumulated. But do you know what I did? Nothing. I didn't call. I didn't send a message. I didn't offer help. Because this time I learned, Helping those who turn their backs on you is not kindness. It is an addiction to abandonment. I watched from afar. I made my tea. I watered my plants. I participated in the writing workshop at the center, where I began to tell my stories on lined sheets. I wrote about love, sacrifice, loss, about the silence that screams more than any voice, and about how the world turns. It spins. My daughter, Nanton, I don't know what the shift is ye have. And sometimes it takes time, but it does. And whoever mocked her pain one day bumps into it. I took no pleasure in seeing their decline. Not at all. I felt peace, because I knew that every overdue bill, every lame excuse, every financial hole that now opened up, it wasn't my fault. It was a reflection of the choices they made while they thought I was just an available old woman. And the most ironic, it's just that the house has become too big for them. Big and empty, because when you build something with lies, the ceiling starts to weigh down. No power. And me? I kept living with less weight on your back, with more air in the lungs. But the story is not over yet, because on a certain Saturday, while I was returning from the market with my bags, I saw something at my door, an envelope, nailed, white, unnamed. Ah, and what was inside? It was what I never expected. Want to know what it was? I'll tell you now. What is it? Because this ending, you need to feel with me. I came back from the market with a bag full of green apples, whole wheat bread, and a jar of honey that Donna Eliza recommended to me to sleep better. The sun was beating down on the balcony, and I was already thinking about preparing my tea when I saw, there, on the doormat of my door, a white envelope. No sender. Oh, unnamed. Just the silence around. And that paper. I picked it up carefully, went in, sat at the kitchen table. My hands didn't tremble. Curiosity, no longer fear. It's just a path, Leo. Open, only now. Inside, I own a handwritten letter. Monsieur, a handwritten letter. It was Jamel's. Mother, Linda, I know I don't deserve an answer. How? But even so, I need to write. The house will be sold. No. We are moving back to a smaller apartment. When children ask for you every day. I feel her absence in everything, in the smell of the food that Kesha never learned to make, in the silence that Miss Cynthia left, and especially, in the place you occupied, and which now seems to have no more ground. I wanted to see you, but I understand if you don't want to. I just needed to tell you that, for the first time, I saw it. Oh, I saw who you were for me, and who I chose to be in return. I'm sorry. Now, I folded the letter. And so please. I stood there looking out the window. What shall be soon? Unhurried, went on down. Not a single tear fell, because it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a statement. In the following days, I continued my routine. Every Tuesday, the reading group met at the public library here in Charlotte. I went with pleasure. He sat by the window, read passages aloud. Nay, won't I? Perhaps exchanged recipes with Nancy. No, I listened to Rose's war stories, who lost two brothers and yet smiled as if she had never forgotten the taste of hope. We laughed a lot. Sometimes he cried, but mainly we saw each other undone, bow. Women who for years were the backdrop of the lives of others, who gave, welcomed, gave in, harassed themselves to keep the home alive, and that now were there, yes, whole. I never became bitter. I didn't let my heart harden. But today, now, he is selective. I love it now, but with a filter. No couldn't see well. I give time, but as far as I can't get empty and loneliness, oh, it is no longer a shadow. It became a choice. My apartment, honey now, which once seemed too small, is now my world. My plants grow in the window. My books have a place on the shelf. My afternoons are mine. What I understood over time that I raised a son, but I can't live by it. Not started so that love is not erasing oneself for the other. Love, it is presence. It's true. Nein Aknam. And truth without respect is not affection. It's abuse in disguise. If you've made it this far, Juan, let me tell you something that I carry with me as a prayer. To love is not to give everything. It is knowing how to stop before losing oneself. And that's how, without screaming, without fighting, without revenge, I found the woman I was before I was just Jamal's mother. But there's still one last thing left to tell you, because last week something happened, something that, it moved in a way that I didn't expect. Want to know what it was? Then hold my hand, because the outcome is yet to come. Today I woke up early, as usual, and even before the sun touched the living room window, I sat down with my hot coffee and my blue-covered notebook, the one that has been with me since the times when Jamal still wore a red backpack to go to school. I opened to the last blank page and wrote, I was a floor. I was a ceiling. I was sustenance. Today, I am silence. Not because I got tired of talking, but because I finally learned to listen to what silence has to tell me. Outside, the sky tinged the roof of the neighboring house golden, and I, sitting there, my identity was my understood once and for all that it wasn't about that house in Huntersville. I didn't want walls. I wanted presence. I didn't want a room with a view of the garden. I wanted the recognition of having been the very foundation of all that. Their dream house became a burden full of late installments and forced smiles. And me, I got the best part. Freedom. If someone asks about me today, Jamal will say, my mother is fine. She lives alone. How? But he will never know that this is where the victory lies. Because living alone is not being alone. It is to be whole. Life has taught me that love is giving. Yes, but it is also a limit. That the time we spend silencing a pain one day becomes wisdom. Taksuetanad soal, and you are estikotwe, tatajalirisiri. And that forgiveness is not forgetting what they did to us. It is choosing not to carry the weight that is not ours anymore. And look out loud. If this story touched your heart, I really hope that you take from here not only the memory of what I lived, but the strength to look inside and ask, how far have I given myself without receiving back even the minimum? Because sometimes we need to lose everything to find ourselves again. Thank you, really, for staying with me until the end. Telling this story was not easy, but if it found shelter there in your chest, then it was worth it. If you felt that I could be your mother, your grandmother, or even yourself in a mirror of time, can you give me a hug in the form of a like? It helps that channel keep going, and it warms up here on the other side more than you might think. And if you want to come back for another cup of coffee and other stories that deserve to be told, subscribe here to the channel. No, the house is always open to those who listen with their hearts. Write in the comments of where you are watching. I want to know where every soul that crossed my path through these words comes from. And it activates the bell. That way you don't miss out when the coffee is brewed again. Don't go away yet. Listen to the next true story that will appear on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Wow. Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story.